Okay, hi everyone. First, I would like to thank everyone for attending this webinar. It means a lot to me and the whole Teen Health 101 community. So I'm Rafia, the Project and Event Manager at Teen Health 101 and your host for this event. Some facts about me: I'm in grade 11 and I joined Teen Health 101 because I really resonated with the mission, which Valerie will get into a little bit later. But now I'd like to introduce our founder, Valerie. She's a junior in high school in New Jersey. She's a straight A student. She's the editor-in-chief of her school newspaper. Her family members are nurses, and she's also the vice president of her school's DECA.
Thank you, Rafia. So, hi everyone, I'm Valerie. So I know we kind of mentioned a lot of things that I do, and all these interests has kind of combined into me founding Teen Health 101. So, okay. So Teen Health 101, we're a youth-led 501c3 nonprofit platform that focuses on creating multimedia and reliable resources about health, fitness, science to educate and inform the youth. And our mission is to combat the spread of misinformation and be a platform for the youth to find simple and accurate information about all things health. I created Teen Health 101 kind of to respond to all of the misinformation we've seen from not just COVID information, but just general health information like nutrition and weight loss and etc. online. So 3 of our values here at Teen Health 101 is reliability. We strive to create accurate and reliable resources for all of our content. So to do this, we actually follow guidelines from a nonprofit affiliated with the World Health Organization for health websites. So we follow those guidelines to ensure that we create reliable resources. And in addition to having a consultant board of medical professionals who help us create accurate content. For example, recently we recruited a nutritionist who helps us on obviously our content about nutrition. Our second value is education. So obviously our main goal is to educate the general youth, so specifically teens, about all things health. So obviously here today, we're educating you on the health, specifically medical school and medical careers, but in our content on our website and across all of our platforms, we definitely educate on all different topics about health. And then our final value is inspiration. So through all the different types of medias we use, so from our digital magazines to our podcasts to our social media, we strive to use all of these engaging and interesting mediums to inspire our audience to continue to be educated about health. So here's our website. Here's just a quick picture. If you want to scan the QR code here in the left-hand side with your phone or any other handheld device, you can check us out on our website. And then our website is also teenhealth101.org if you want to just type it in your browser. Okay, so and then our second largest audience is actually on our Instagram, which is really popular. So we included our Instagram right here. This is a pretty out of date picture. We actually have, I'm pretty sure we have 1,700 followers right now, but if you want to follow us on Instagram to stay updated on all of our content across all of our platforms and on events like this in the future, feel free to follow us. And then you can follow us by using the QR code again, or you can just type in Teen Health 101 in your search bar in Instagram. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit about our team behind behind Teen Health 101 and who helps create all this content. We have our ambassadors who actually help market all of our content and help us spread our message. So some of you may know some of our ambassadors who referred you to this event, or maybe your friends are ambassadors. So those are the people who mainly help spread our message and help spread the word about Teen Health 101. And then the second part of our team is our content creators, who actually are the ones creating all this content and helping us run things at Teen Health 101. And for example, our content creators, we have different departments of our content creator team. So one specific department is projects and events, and they've helped organize and coordinate this webinar for you today. And our team is comprised of over 100 members from over 17 different countries. And so if you'd like to join us at Teen Health 101, you can fill out the corresponding applications on your screen right now. You can just scan, you can take a look at the application by scanning the QR code. Again, ambassadors are more kind of spreading our message, kind of helping us with marketing operations, and then our content creators who are the ones actually kind of helping us create content and also organize events like this for you. And also by being a part of Teen Health 101, you also have firsthand access to kind of all the content, and you're the first to hear about events like this. And then this last QR code is just a link to our link tree. So you can kind of get to everything we've mentioned in the past 10 minutes through this link. So there's the link to our website and then all of our applications and also all of our other socials if you'd like to follow us there. And that's it. I hope everyone, Rafika, could you go back one slide just for 1 second? Okay. New Jersey, if you need the slide, we just went back. Don't worry, these slides will be sent out after the event. So if you miss anything, and this goes for everyone, all of the materials from this event will be sent out. Okay, next slide. Okay, so thank you for listening to my part of this presentation. I hope you enjoy the event, and yeah.
Everyone, so now we're going to get started with our speaker panel. So these are our two speakers for today, Kristen and JR. So Kristen, will you please take it away?
Kristen, you're muted. Oh, here, wait. I think, here, let me fix this. There you go. Sorry.
All right. Can everybody? No problem at all. I hope that everybody can hear me. Hi, my name is Kristen Purcell. I am a medical student at Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine. My pronouns are she, her, and my Instagram handle is Christine Purchell. It's an old inside joke between friends. So yes, it looks like it's just a misspelling of my name. So sorry about that and that confusion. We can go ahead and get into it. So let's kind of talk about the journey of going to medical school. So obviously, a lot of people start in high school, graduate high school, then you decide to go to college. Once people are in college, they can do any kinds of majors, but there are certain classes that have to be taken in order to apply to medical school. So I chose to do a cell and molecular biology and chemistry degree just because those were the things that I was interested in. And a lot of the classes that were under these degrees, they ended up filling the prerequisites for applying to medical school. And so it kind of just hit two birds with one stone. But I also had a lot of friends who either did English as their major or they did acting. I have a friend who got their degree in like music, and they ended up taking the science classes on the side in order to apply to medical school. So you don't have to have a science degree to apply to medical school. You just have to have take certain classes. I kind of started a little bit late in deciding that I wanted to go to medical school. I kind of had just a general idea of liking science, but towards the end of my time in college, I decided I wanted to go. So kind of to bridge the time between undergrad and med school, I decided to get my master's. And I did my master's at Colorado State University in with a neurobiology emphasis. And then during my master's, I applied to medical school. I applied to about 20 different medical schools. I had, I think, 5 interviews and then 4 acceptances because I actually interviewed at those schools. One of them I didn't interview at. And so, yeah, and so now I'm in my 3rd year of medical school. Medical school is 4 years. Okay, and then I'm currently applying to or getting ready to apply to residency for emergency medicine. And so after medical school, you're a doctor, but you still have to go to what's called residency. And that's essentially additional training as a physician. And so residency can last anywhere from 3 years to 7 years. It really just depends on what you're going into. So for the field that I'm going into, the residencies are either 3 or 4 years. And so hopefully in the next 5 years or so, I'll be done with all of this and I'll actually be full on working and in the emergency medicine field. So some of the common questions that a lot of people ask me about, my journey into medicine are kind of, here on our slide. And so some people get really concerned about the transition from undergrad to medical school. And frankly, I didn't have that straight from undergrad to med school journey. I got my master's in between. Going from college to doing a master's program was very difficult. Specifically, the program that I did for my grad school, it took a lot out of me. But the really nice thing with doing that increased intensity with schooling before medical school is that by the time I got to medical school, I was kind of already in the grad school mindset and studying. And so my transition from grad school to med school was actually pretty fluid because I got my master's in between, and my master's was pretty challenging. So I think a lot of undergrad students kind of underestimate the differences in studying for med school. And so it is kind of a learning curve in the beginning, but people usually get used to it as they continue on. So some of my must-have resources and study strategies, and I tried to make this pretty uncategorized because this can really apply to anybody who's studying for anything, whether you're studying for pre-law or you're studying for your nursing degree or you're studying to become, really anything under the sun. Here's some really good general guidances of study habits. First and foremost, most important thing, put your phone away. It is absolutely a distraction. I have to keep mine in like the other room in order to keep myself from checking it. It really is interesting the amount of things that you're actually able to retain if you have your full attention on something instead of having a lot of distractions. And I appreciate the questions that people are putting in the chat. We'll go ahead and do a Q&A at the end. Okay, so those are great questions, but I don't want anybody to think that we're ignoring you. We're just gonna go ahead and save all those questions for the end, okay? So kind of going back into studying. So number 1, put your phone away. Number 2, take a break. It's totally fine. You don't have to sit there for like 4 hours and stare at like the same slides over and over again. So I really like to study for an hour and then take like a 10 or 20-minute break. And whether that's, going outside, going to the gym, calling my mom or somebody, it's really important to kind of schedule out those breaks so that your brain can kind of like get that rest in between. So as much as it's important for you to be looking at the material, it's also important to schedule in your breaks and kind of stick to that timeline. I like to listen to music when I am studying. I like to listen to jazz or classical music. This is kind of like per person. So just like a personal preference for me, I like to listen to music, and it kind of helps me to keep from hearing people around me and helps me to kind of get more in my zone, because I get really distracted if like I hear noises that are, coming from the other room, or if I'm in a coffee shop. So music is definitely something that really helps me to kind of like get into my zone. I listen to like the same playlist over and over again. And so that's something that also kind of helps me to just like zone out in what I'm doing. Specifically for people who are looking at, I think actually this is for a lot more fields now. So Anki, it is a free online flashcard resource that's really similar to Quizlet, except for like, you don't have to pay for anything. So I really like that resource. It kind of has a learning curve to the beginning of it, because it's very you kind of have to be tech savvy to use it initially, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty good. It's really important for spaced repetition. And so I think JR is going to talk about it a little bit at the end as well. But yeah, Anki is a great free resource for creating your own flashcards or sharing flashcards with other people. And then kind of a little bit more med school specific is that there's a lot of different, and I guess like for anything, there's a lot of different test prep resources out there. So like a lot of people will be familiar with Princeton Review, Kaplan, first aid, all those sorts of things. Those are all great resources, but it's really important that you don't bog yourself down with like the multitudes of resources that are out there. It's important that you kind of find what works best for you and stick with it, instead of like either wasting your money or wasting your time on using like 50 different resources that you only use like not to their full capacity, if that makes sense. And then in regards to finding opportunities, first of all, we live in the age of internet. It's amazing. You can literally Google local volunteering in your area and you'll find everything. Cold calls. So a lot of people are really scared to like just send an email to somebody they don't know, but honestly, you just have to do it. The worst thing that somebody can say is no. And so I can't tell you how many different times I have emailed a research coordinator and been like, yo, can I come work in your lab? And they've been like, yes, but they've been like, no. You just have to kind of like put yourself out there and send an email. Again, the worst thing that can happen is they can say no. And then the same thing for volunteering. And then I like to attend different events. So whether that's volunteering events or those are conferences for different medical specialties, those are all great things to go to. So for my story, and I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, I initially went into undergrad thinking that I wanted to be an athletic trainer. I worked as an athletic trainer throughout high school. And so I kind of wanted to continue that. I took some science classes, found out that I really liked science, changed my major to cell molecular and chemistry. And then like midway through college, I was like, whoa, being a doctor would be really cool too. So I took the Mcat my senior year. First time I did it, I did not eat during one of my sections, bombed one of my sections because I didn't eat, and then ended up retaking it. Made sure I had enough snacks with me and did completely fine. And my science GPA was a 3.5, just for, just like let everybody know. So you don't have to have a 4.0 to apply to medical school. You don't even have to have like, there are certain like minimums that medical schools will look at, but really, even if you don't have a spectacular GPA, like let's say that you have like a 3.2, like that's still an amazing GPA, especially if you have a lot of other things to back up your application, okay? I worked as a medical scribe in the ER. So this is what gave me a lot of clinical exposure to physicians and how the medical field kind of worked. And so that was just one thing. So if you guys do have the opportunity to work as a medical scribe and you're interested in medicine, that's something I would look into. My research specifically in undergrad was on snake venom and oxytocin. It had nothing to do with medicine. Okay. Like you do not have to do research in a specific field in order to, apply to medical school. Literally, if you like research, do research. That's all that really matters. Okay. Another important thing for wherever you guys end up going in life, make sure that you keep your hobbies and your interests, you know, kind of at your forefront. So I've worked as a zookeeper, as a beer brewer, and I always love doing things outdoors. And so throughout my entire journey, you know, through undergrad, through grad school, and even now in medical school, I make sure to put the things that I love to do at the forefront of like what I am doing, because so that I don't lose who I am in the process. Okay. And it's actually kind of funny because a lot of pre-meds think that, oh, well, you know, I have to become a CNA to do XYZ. No, like you can do your own thing. You can follow your own journey and have unique experiences, and you probably will be better for it. And then while I've been in medical school, I've made sure to continue being active with post-traumatic stress disorder advocacy. So this is the PTSD, as well as tutoring for some extra money on the side, and then mentoring pre-med students through their application process, as well as medical students that are in classes underneath myself. So for my last remarks, and what I think is kind of important is, and what I kind of tell everybody is, it's really easy to get bogged down in all the details. So people go like, oh, like I have to do all these different things, like in order to become a doctor, and like da 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 da. It can feel really overwhelming, but something that kind of helps to decrease feeling overwhelmed in general is to focus on what you can control. And so focusing on, okay, well, I can put my phone away in order to have less distractions while I'm studying in order to do better on my tests. So that's an example of a step that you can take to focus on what you can control. Or I can't control my friend acting like a jerk, but I can control my own behaviors and not treat people ways that I wouldn't want to be treated. And so focusing on what you can control in general is a really good approach to decreasing the stress in your life and moving forward and being able to handle more complex situations. And then focus on following your own path. Your path to whatever you want to do in life does not have to look like anyone else's. You can explore the opportunities that you're interested in. You can join the groups that you know, match up with what you have interest in. If you want to become a doctor, you don't have to do the biology degree and, you know, CNA and all that fun stuff. Like you could get your degree in musical theater and work as a zookeeper and still get into medical school. You just kind of like, you do you, and whatever you want to end up doing in life, you can eventually get there if you just keep chugging along. Okay. So again, just focus on what you can control and follow your own path.
Now we'll be having our second speaker, JR. JR, please take it away.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Well, what's up, guys? First, thank you, Valerie, Rafia. This is awesome. And everybody who's in here, I see we have like 50 people in here. They told us earlier that most of you guys are in high school. Like, this absolutely blows my mind that you guys are doing something like this. I can tell you that I was not forward thinking when I was in high school on a Friday afternoon. So super impressed with you know, the leadership of this group, but then everybody in here too. Like, this is really, really impressive. But I'm a first year medical student now at the Mayo Clinic, Alex School of Medicine. My pronouns are he and him, and you can find me on Instagram or YouTube at Evolving Medic. Yeah, and then we can go ahead to the next slide. So I'll kind of follow a similar path laid out by Kristen, and a lot of stuff I'll be piggybacking off of what she said, which I think gives it more evidence. We made these slides independent of each other, but a lot of the material is similar, which I think speaks volumes. But again, I'm first year right now. I graduated from Duke in 2018. You guys are probably a lot better at math than I am, but you can probably calculate that. That means I took 2 years between graduating undergrad and starting medical school. we'll end up talking more about my story and everything towards the end. But that's becoming less of an anomaly. It's kind of deemed a non-traditional route of medicine when you take time in between, but now it's becoming more common, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. I wrote on here that I'm planning to pursue orthopedic surgery. I am definitely pursuing orthopedic surgery. Most people don't necessarily come into medical school. Again, I'm just a first year. Most people don't come in knowing exactly what they want to do. And I didn't even know that I wanted to go into medicine until like I was midway through college. But I think that it is valuable to start to think about what you guys want to do. And that again is kind of speaking to why I think it's so impressive that you guys are doing what you're doing here, being a part of this. And I am so set on orthopedic surgery that now I am like, it's like become almost my life. So instead of planning, I should have said I am definitely pursuing orthopedic surgery. And then again, on the side, kind of mentioning, falling back on what Kristen mentioned too, things that I do for fun, because there are other parts outside, I guess, of orthopedic surgery. That's a big chunk, but outside of that, that kind of fills my cup outside of school. And I think those are things that, like Kristen mentioned, is important to kind of keep at the forefront of what you're doing. And for me, I love creating content. I have a YouTube channel, Evolving Medic. I am the host of a podcast, the Future Leaders of Healthcare podcast. It's like a shameless plug if you guys want to check out those avenues of content. But I think, again, it's just speaking to what Kristen said. Medical school is hard. College is going to be hard. Everything that, you guys are high aspiring, high achieving students just to be here. So what you guys will be, pursuing is going to be a difficult route. But I think being able to have things that fill your cup is important. Those things, the challenges of the journey may drain the cup a bit, but having things that, make you who you are and kind of fill that cup is important along the way. So again, kind of following that theme, I want to touch first on the transition from college to med school for me. So I didn't have the same blessing of an experience of doing that master's program that Kristen had. So I went from college, and again, I took 2 gap years. And during that time, I was working as a research assistant. So I was doing research. I was trying to get more of this medical experience. I didn't get too much medical experience in college. And so I wanted to spend some time making sure that was what I wanted to do, and get some just, application boosters, which when you are pre-med, as toxic as that may be, a lot of the time you have to do things, check boxes, whatever the case may be. But it was easier, I would say. Those 2 years were easier than in undergrad. I got married during that time. I worked 4 or 5 hours a day doing research, would come back. I coached sports. I was hanging out. I was living in Colorado, going on hikes all the time with my wife and just hanging out. So then when I went into medical school, first I was just blown away that I even got into medical school, because I didn't think that I was I didn't necessarily have confidence in my candidacy. So just blown away that I even got in to begin with. And one thing that you'll notice is that the more education that you do, the more kind of funneled the type of student becomes. And so when I got into medical school, I realized that literally every single person around me was an absolute genius. And you guys may experience this as well, even in high school and college. I'm sure you will too. Just, you can be in a class, you can be in an AP class, or you can be in a tough, college course or whatever. And you just feel like, why does everybody around me seem like they already know all of this, or already have this down, or whatever? So I was experiencing some of that when I started. And again, I didn't actually have any medical interests until midway through college. And a lot of people who are my colleagues and my peers and stuff, they, similar to maybe some of you guys, have known that they wanted to go the medical school route, since high school, which I'm jealous of. But that forced me to have this kind of quote unquote imposter syndrome where, I just was like, do I really fit this kind of community of geniuses? Everybody already knows so much, that whole thing. But then one thing that helps me kind of transition that arrow to kind of that self-confidence is that I started to realize that I could appreciate the genius of my colleagues and of the people around me without like forgetting my own. And medicine is one of those things where it's super specialized, right? And so, like similar to what Kristen said, she's going into emergency medicine. This is a specialty. She's going to be focusing on a certain aspect of medicine. Orthopedic surgery is a different aspect of medicine. It's a super wide variety of things that you can do in the medical field, which is why I think it's so amazing. But then that even trickles down to when you're actually in medical school. And so you can have some people who have master's degrees and they've spent 2 years studying, pathology or histology or things like that. And, somebody else who spent 2 years doing research in the sports medicine clinic. And so when we're in a class that is histology or, biochemistry for like a biochemistry major, from the outside looking in, I may see somebody and they're just absolutely crushing it. And I just may be like, why am I not crushing it? And then when we kind of get into more like MS or musculoskeletal kind of things, bones and muscles and stuff like that, and that's kind of my jam, and I'm just like, kind of grooving and everything, they may be thinking the same kind of thing. But I think making that transition from that imposter syndrome to self-confidence kind of stemmed on that appreciation of, or that idea of appreciating other people's genius while like not forgetting my own. And getting into medical school is like, it's hard, it's a tough route, it's ridiculously difficult. And I think, the pre-meds, and I'm calling you guys pre-meds already because you guys are here. You will be deemed pre-med if you follow this journey in college. It's basically filled with like neuroticism, for lack of a better word, where it's just like so much anxiety. You're trying to check off all these boxes, like I was mentioning, whatever. It's just a super tough journey. But then getting into medical school, like once you go through that journey, and I know everybody here absolutely can and will if that's what you want to do. You deserve to be where you deserve to be there. You will deserve to be a part of that medical school kind of community. Again, I'm looking around, everybody at my school, there's everybody's geniuses and stuff, and it can feel like you don't deserve to be there, but I can assure you that you do. And having that self-confidence of knowing that you deserve to be there will actually allow you to look at everybody else and appreciate that everybody else also deserves to be there. In terms of the study resources, again, me and Kristen made these slides like completely independent of each other, but you see I also threw in Anki. So spaced repetition is absolutely key for me. Also piggybacking on what Kristen said earlier too, those things of like putting the phone away, huge. Like Instagram, TikTok, I actually don't even have a TikTok, but my wife has a TikTok, so she tells me how addicting it is and what it is. It will draw you in before you know it, 30 minutes went by. And I also listen to music. I have the exact same playlist, just like Kristen mentioned. It actually like triggers my brain to get into kind of study mode. So all those things that she mentioned is key. The one thing that I want to highlight on is spaced repetition, and specifically for medical school. I wish that I knew more about this as a pre-med in college, but the science on learning techniques to actually remember what you learn is pretty clear at this point. And it's this idea that like you are consistently reviewing material over intervals of time. And, so not that, oh, my final is next week on Friday, I'm going to wait until Wednesday and then just try to like study everything that I learned this semester. Because that was me in college and it did not work too well. Medical school, but it worked well enough, right? I was able to get into medical school. Medical school, though, on the other hand, that will not work. And so the amount of material that you actually have to remember is where the challenge, I think, of medical school comes from. So the challenge in the classes and things like that isn't necessarily in like these super abstract principles. We're not learning like astrophysics or, some of these like super like just conceptually difficult courses, but we're learning a lot of things that require us to have a very strong memory of these things. And then we also learn, how to apply them and things like that, but it all stems from actually like remembering what we learned. So it's not necessarily too hard to learn, but it can be hard to remember because there's so much to remember. And the only way that I think that you can accomplish this in a healthy way without having to kind of do the 3 days before finals, let me try to absorb a textbook of information, is to be like consistently reviewing that information along wide spans of time. And so Anki, like Kristen mentioned, is a tool that basically allows you to do that automatically. It has like an algorithm, and this is why she maybe mentioned that it's like it has a steep learning curve because it basically just you'll review something, and then a few days later you'll review it again, and then a few weeks, and then a few months, and it kind of goes like that. With the idea that like the space increases, so you don't have to review it every single day, but you're still reviewing the same material. This is key in medical school, and if you haven't heard about Anki yet, you probably will as pre-med in college, and you definitely will in medical school if again, this is the route that you go. And there's actually like a ton of these kind of pre-made cards and decks and things like that that are catered towards medical students, which makes it so, I think, amazing for medical students. But again, Kristen mentioned that this is, extending outside of just the medical school community. And you guys, if you want to look into it for just your own courses, for things that you just have to remember a ton of stuff, I would definitely recommend looking into Anki. In terms of how to find opportunities like research, mentorship is huge. The medical community, it's hierarchical, which could be toxic in some ways, but it allows you to have like a streamline way to basically find what you need. And what I mean by that is that if I was a first year going into medical school with Kristen, I'd be able to have Kristen as an upper year medical student, just like what she explained that she likes to do, mentor younger medical students. And I would be able to say, hey, Kristen, I have no idea, how did you study for this course? I am freaking out. She's going to be able to teach me how to study for that course, what worked for her. Kristen, what opportunities can I have to do research in this field? Do you know any doctors? She's either going to know somebody directly or know somebody who knows somebody. And then I'm going to get into that community as well. And then what that does is, in Kristen, she had the same experiences with mentors above her. When she's in residency, she's going to have upper year residents. And it again is this kind of like hierarchy where it's just kind of levels to this training. But what that allows you to do is I can now find somebody who can be a medical student, an upper year medical student mentor for me, who can really help me with a lot of the medical school things, opportunities in medical school. I can then connect with a resident or a faculty or a staff member at my medical school, and they can maybe connect and they can help me with those research opportunities and things like that. And it's just kind of like this, again, system where you are funneled into these different opportunities. And you can have mentors at each level of those, of that kind of ladder, if you will. So looking for mentorship is huge. Getting into the habit of it early is extremely beneficial, in just like how you will mature and grow throughout your academic experience. Getting used to being able to cold call, like Kristen said, and shoot somebody an email and just say like, hey, like, what's up? I'm so-and-so, like, can I squeeze in for this? And if you get a no, that's perfectly fine. And 9 times out of 10, when you do get that no, then they'll just direct you to somebody who may also be able to help you. And so getting comfortable in doing that is I think something that you guys can start trying to incorporate in your own days, especially when you're looking for opportunities. And now basically the technology is here. Also, COVID hit, so people know how to use email. People know how to set up Zoom meetings. People know how to, connect virtually at this point. And so it makes it even less stressful than going up to maybe like a professor's office door and knocking and then, trying to talk or something. So there are a lot of ways for you to seek that mentorship, but that mentorship is, I think, at the foundation for actually finding the opportunities that you want. So I'm looking at time here. I don't want to use too much because I want you guys to have as much Q&A time as possible. But I just briefly want to go over my story. I think sharing a little bit about my story can resonate with some people. And, again, it's a stressful path to being here. And I think maybe having this story in the back of your mind through your own journeys may actually relieve some of that stress. It's not going to relieve all of it because, again, we're all type A personalities, borderline neurotic. So unfortunately, we can't take all the stress away. But my pre-med journey started a little late. Usually pre-meds come into medical school or undergrad already kind of knowing that they want to be pre-med. Because there's a lot of those prereqs that Kristen was mentioning. So they kind of already know, like, okay, I'm going to come in here. Maybe I'll major in biochem. Maybe I'll major in, art history or something like that Kristen mentioned. But I'm going to make sure that I take my pre-med courses on the side because there's a lot of them and I need to start filling checking these boxes, right? Filling these requirements. For me, I came into college, I was a track and field athlete. My idea was like, okay, I'm here so that I can run track. I'm going to take the easiest major so that I can be set to go for practice. you know, and school, we'll put that on the side, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Then I got hurt, and I ended up having a really big knee surgery, and I actually am now recovering from another surgery. But I ended up having a knee surgery my freshman year of college, and I was able to still come back and be on the track team and have that. I had a good experience with my sports, but it opened up a world of another kind of career opportunity with medicine, with my experience now being the patient. And so then I was like, okay, sophomore year, I'm gonna start this pre-med journey. I don't know anything about it. I haven't taken any biology or chemistry or whatever. And it was difficult to start. Freshman year, again, I was trying to take the easiest courses possible. And then sophomore year, I was taking things like organic chemistry, which to me is like the worst thing ever. Um, and I got, you know, I had C's on I got 2 C's my sophomore year. And since I was kind of new to the pre-med community, I didn't know that that meant essentially that my life was over. But then speaking to pre-med advisors and things like that, they were like, oh yeah, your life is kind of over. You got 2 C's. Um, and again, I'm telling this.
Oh no. No, I think we lost JR. Should we move on to the Q&A while we wait for him to come back?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And you know, just to kind of like touch on what JR was you know, talking about, a lot of pre-meds have a lot of anxiety about their GPA, and there's like a lot of like neuroticism associated with, you know, trying to like, oh, I have to get like the best score. Oh, he's back.
They are.
I am so sorry, guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh no, my connection just must have cut out. This is the Zoom life, I suppose. So
We can head on back. Yay.
I think, yeah, if we can go back a couple slides. So yeah, I was basically saying the start to my pre-med journey was tough. I was able to kind of figure things out, kind of learn some of these study strategies that would allow me to do better towards the end of my undergrad. But similar to Kristen, I had to take the Mcat twice as well. I unfortunately don't have it. My first one was, I don't have any excuse other than being unprepared for me personally. It is a beast of an exam. I didn't take practice exams. I thought that doing a ton of like reading the book and just doing problems, practice questions would be okay to prepare you for like a 7.5 hour test. It's not. You have to like build up test endurance and all of that type of stuff. So all of these are basically these challenges that I experienced along the way. Having C's on your report card, having to take the Mcat multiple times. In the moment, those feel like, you know, your life is over. Again, you guys are high achieving students. You guys don't want, you know, like anything that is going to affect your ability to succeed in an academic endeavor is going to be extremely stressful. And that stress is okay, right? That's what keeps you pushing to be achieving in the way that you guys are. But in the moment, it seems like the end of the world. In hindsight, I'm sure you guys, even in high school, already have experiences where you look back at freshman year of high school, when that one test that you were super stressed about and you felt like it was just the worst time ever. And now wherever you are now, you're like, okay, I'm fine. It wasn't terrible. You're going to have these throughout life, but being able to have those to fall back on give you the confidence that you'll overcome them when you're in the moment. And then, so I ended up taking 2 gap years because my pre-med experience was mostly focused on, again, I was running track, so I was doing sports. I didn't do things like research or community service or shadowing, all these kind of things, these box checking kind of things that you have to do as a pre-med. So I ended up taking 2 gap years, and I planned on 2 gap years. One, because I got married during this time, so I wanted to make sure I could have some time to get my house situation and my family situation squared away. But then I wanted to be able to get 2 years of exposure to medicine, you know, doing those things that I didn't do in undergrad, like shadowing and research. And again, all of this makes me a super non-traditional medical school applicant. You know, I have C's, took the Mcat twice. I took 2 years off, and it still worked out well. You guys are already starting way ahead of where I was at. And you guys will still experience challenges along the way. But I can assure you that this route of medical school, though it is extremely difficult, it's not one of those professional, it's not like going to the NBA, right? Again, a lot of my stuff is like sport minded, but where you have to come out of the womb 6'7" and be able to have a 40-inch vertical. You know, this is a journey that's difficult, but it is controlled, and that it's dependent on your determination to keep going through those hurdles. It's dependent on your determination to reach a goal despite having roadblocks along the way, having things like consistent study habits, building discipline. These are things that you can actually control, right? And so it's a different journey. And so I hope that my story with the roadblocks, with all of that, can serve as a hope to when you guys may have like, oh man, I didn't get the best grade on this test right here. Oh wait, but there is somebody in medical school who didn't get the best grades on tests too. So it's not the end of the world. Don't let stress, don't let this make you get completely you know, like you don't care about anything, like a D is a D, whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But when they do come, you know, they're not the end of the world. And then my final words, I say no one's path is perfect, so expect challenges along the way. But the good news is success in this field is not defined by how smooth your journey was, but by your commitment to keep moving forward. So just again, kind of reiterating what I just kind of mentioned. This is if you want to be a doctor, and you guys even having the interest that you guys have right now for being in this meeting, you know, Valerie, Rafia, you guys starting this, you know, whether your interest is to go into medicine, law, or some combination, you guys having the forward thinkingness basically of what you want to do, being committed to that journey is going to get you far. Again, the journeys that all of us essentially are on right now they stem from our commitment to just this process, dedication towards, you know, developing the good traits of you know, discipline and all of those type of things that we just talked about. These are things that you can control. Going back to Kristen's final words, like think about these are the things that we can actually control, right? And where you guys are right now, again, I can't stress enough like how impressed I am by the starting this. This is absolutely amazing. I'm honored that I got to just come and hang out with you rock stars, because this is awesome. So with that, I want to open it up for questions. I know we have a few in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Kristen and JR, for your informative and inspiring presentations. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. Just in terms of the format of the question, if you want to include your name, your question, and then if you have a specific speaker that you want to answer the question, you should also include that. And then I will read them out loud. And yeah.
Do you want to start with the ones that were given earlier? I'm pretty sure the first couple are for Kristen.
Okay, I'm just going to scroll up and then.
Okay.
So Archissa asks, have you given your USMLE steps?
Yes. So I took, and just kind of like preface this, there are two different kinds of physicians, two different routes that you can take to becoming a physician. You can either go to MD school or you can go to DO school. At the end of the day, you will be able to practice as a doctor. And so I am at a DO school, JR is at an MD school. So it's kind of fun because you guys get to like kind of see like, I mean, we're doing the same thing and we're going to end up in the same place. But the difference is I took, like with the DO licensure, we take a kind of a little bit of a different, but a very similar exam. It's called the COMLEX, whereas the MD students take the USMLE. A lot of DO students end up taking USMLE and COMLEX anyway, but that's a whole other caveat. And so, yes, at the end of the second year of medical school is when a lot of medical students will take their first rounds of board exams. And there are 3 rounds of board exams that have to be completed during medical school for you to become a doctor. And so the first one is done at the end of second year. The second one is done at the end of third year, which I'm currently studying for. And then the third one is done during the first year of residency. So that's kind of how those go. So yeah, I took level 1 Comlex and I took step 1 USMLE already.
Thank you for answering that. Our next question is from Krupa. Krupa asks, is there any way I can work as a medical scribe at 16?
No, you have to be 18. At the age of 16, what I would highly recommend is working in some kind of service job. So either food service or like anything that's kind of like fast paced with customer service, because honestly, those skills of being able to like quickly problem solve on your feet and interact with people is very important in medicine. And it really does translate in a lot of things. So no, at 16, you cannot become a medical scribe. You have to be 18. But right now, what you can do is you can work in the food industry. I worked in the food industry for like since I was 16 up until the age of, I want to say 20. And so, yeah, those are great jobs because they teach you so many different skills that are very translatable to a whole bunch of different medical fields.
I think this next one is for JR. So Martha asks, in your medical interview, did you have to explain the 3 C's on your transcript?
I actually did not have to. I was prepared to. I was expecting to. But luckily I didn't have to. My GPA, again, because of that, it was not great. I had a 3.4 something GPA, 3.4, yeah, GPA. So not great. I was fortunate enough to do well on my MCAT, and that's basically where I kind of tried to boost everything because I thought that a strong MCAT would outweigh a potentially subpar GPA. And a lot of times the MCAT does carry more weight into your application than your GPA because GPAs can vary across schools, and there's a lot of that goes into it. But the MCAT is a standardized exam, so it's kind of valued more. And so if interviewers do want to talk about something on your application related to those statistics, it will usually be your MCAT unless you have a significant like a 2.5 or something that is very alarming or something. But yeah, I spoke about my much more about things outside of my stats. I rarely got any questions asked about like stats. And I think that goes to emphasize, I know this is kind of a tangent from the question, but your story, I like to say this all the time, like story over stats, like by far when you're applying to medical school and just applying to most things, because people care much more about that as little as we may not think that, again, coming from, we're kind of neurotic and the stats are something that's tangible, we can see it. But being able to talk about who you are and, they want to figure out who's going to be a good doctor as a person. And that's less about GPA. So I was fortunate not to have conversations about that.
So Mahika asks, when or what year should I give my MCAT? And this is to Kristen or JR. So either one of you can answer.
So typically, for the application process, what typically happens is that a lot of people take the MCAT during their junior year of college. So usually around like spring break, junior year, because the application season for medical school opens up in summer. And so people will take the MCAT sometime in the spring and then they get their score back. And then if they need to retake it in order to be ready for the summer, they can do so, or they can just be like, cool, I like that score, I'm going to apply with it and get all their other resource or get all their other applications stuff in their basket and ready to hit submit when it opens up in the summertime.
And also to kind of piggyback too off of that, and taking the MCAT means that you've already taken all of your pre-med classes, and so it's dependent on that as well. So yeah, like Kristen said, most people who come into medical or undergrad knowing that they want to go into medicine, they are focused on getting those pre-med requirements done by that junior year so they can take the MCAT so they can go straight from undergrad to medical school. If you don't take all of those classes, you don't want to take that MCAT until you've taken all of that. So I didn't even take the MCAT until that gap year that I had. which also was why I ended up having those 2 gap years. So it's dependent on when you complete those pre-med courses.
The next question is from Dia, and her question is for both speakers. What are your tips to overcome test anxiety?
I think remembering other times that you've had test anxiety and that it worked out fine. I use this quote like all the time. Hindsight is 20/20. I love the quote because I had test anxiety too. I didn't have the greatest like ACT score and stuff, and I thought the Mcat was going to be, taking it the first time definitely made me not too confident going in the second time. But having other experiences to look back at where I approached a test being nervous and anxious about it, realizing that where I am in the present, I am fine based on that test. That test didn't do anything to define where I am right now. Always allows me to kind of like breathe out some of that anxiety. Some of the anxiety is going to be there again because we're high performing students. We want to do good, so that's going to be there no matter what. But then knowing that you're going to be okay because you've been okay before helps bring the level down to something that can be beneficial when you're taking the test and not consume you.
Mm-hmm. I think simulating your testing environment is something that's really helpful as well. So for instance, when students are preparing for MCAT, like JR said, like just doing a couple of questions and reading is not super helpful. It's very, very important to do the full on big spiel practice tests that emulate the testing day and like the longevity of it, because really the endurance of testing is what becomes important for medical school and a lot of the standardized exams. So one of the things that like I found that was really helpful for my testing anxiety, I'm 100% one of those people, or I was when I started medical school, and now like we test so often that I'm just like, it's another exam, like let's go. So it's like one of the nice things about medical school, you just get you get used to it over time. But again, simulating your testing environment. So like going into a secluded room, putting in your headphones, having nothing around you, no distractions, like following it the way that you would be doing it in the testing center is kind of like a really good way to kind of help prepare for that testing anxiety.
Our next question is from Zugeeth. Zugeeth asks, how many times can you take the MCAT? And this is to either Kristen or JR.
So there's a number that you can take in 5 years, I think. I actually don't know what that number is, Kristen, you may. But the more times that you do take it, it starts to look bad on an application. And so especially if it's not going in this direction, right? So I recommend trying to take the MCAT one time. And worst comes to worst, then you have to take it a second time, which again, as Kristen and I have both experienced, isn't the end of the world, but I definitely would recommend trying to be ready for that first one. If the first one doesn't go well, don't expect to take more than 2. I would suggest.
Yeah, and it's expensive too. Like the MCAT's not an inexpensive exam, so that's another reason why taking it more than once is kind of frustrating financially. So according to the AAMC, the Association of American Medical Colleges, just did a good old Google. You can take the MCAT up to 3 times in a single year. In 2 years, you can take it 4 times. And that, so like, let's say you take it twice during 1 year and then twice during the next year, like that would be the limit. And then in your whole lifetime, you as a human existing on this planet, you can only take it 7 times. So those are, I just got that from the website. I had no idea. I didn't remember that. So just fun fact.
Shout out Google.
Yeah.
Okay, so, sorry.
It's okay, go ahead.
We have like, sorry we're going a little over time, but I know a lot of people were wondering just some general advice regarding courses and extracurriculars in high school. So if you guys could just briefly comment on that, that would be great, because I know a lot of people actually asked the same question. And that'll be their last one.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
What was the question again?
The question was like, do you have any, for both of you, do you have any general advice regarding either courses or extracurriculars for high school students to kind of get a head start on the whole medical school process?
In high school, there's not going to be as many opportunities to do things like, you know, shadowing in the OR and kind of like directly medical school related kind of things. But the better your foundation of science, that's going to help. I was not a science major. I studied evolutionary anthropology. So that is not the biochems and the other stuff. And sometimes I wish I had a better foundation of that, because a lot of, especially in your first year of medical school, is based on that. So getting like, you know, in those AP chemistry or AP biology kind of courses in high school, and really taking that material seriously and not kind of, you know, just getting ready to take the test so that you can like memory dump it, you know, which is what I would do even in those days. Like having that foundation is going to be helpful. Extracurricular opportunities like volunteering is big, you know, just because it's similar to what Kristen mentioned before. It gets you into the feel of, you know, how things work when you're in a situation where you're helping people, you're working with people, and volunteering doesn't really depend too much. You can volunteer in high school. You know, it's not like a medical school kind of thing where you have to be, you know, in the school.
Yeah, I would just do what interests you. Like there's no one thing that you have to absolutely do. I mean, other than take the prerequisite courses and do the MCAT, like you do not have to do anything specific. And honestly, the thing that I've talked to a couple of, and so I do medical school interviews as well. I forgot to mention this. So I actually interview students. And so one of the things that like we always talk about that's like really nice to see for applicants is consistency. And so, you know, if you see somebody who's like, oh, like I really enjoyed volunteering at the animal shelter for this many years, or it really is just like the consistency of like showing like you're dedicated to something, and like just showing that you're a human and like have human interests that are like, oh, like I like to do pottery, or I like to do art, or I like to be a part of like Russian like doll painting, like whatever it is, like do you. That's the most important thing. Do what interests you, because you're going to have a much easier time A, writing about it, B, talking about it, and interesting people. I was a zookeeper. I like animals. That was one of the things that I did volunteering during undergrad. It had nothing to do with medicine. Just do what makes you happy, and your journey will be a lot more enjoyable. So.
Okay, thank you all. That was the last question. And I actually just want to make a note that, yeah, if anything you're going to take away from this, definitely what I took away is that there's no actual like set path. Obviously, as we've learned from Kristen and JR, it's definitely just kind of about passion and just making sure you have kind of the academic foundation for whatever career you're going into in medicine. So I just want to thank you for joining us. Feel free to email us at teenhealth101org@gmail.com if you have any questions, and then all of the materials will be emailed out. So we'll be emailing a PDF copy of the slideshow, a recording of the of this Zoom, and we'll also be providing links to Kristen and JR's social medias if you want to follow them or get in contact with them. Okay, so real quick, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, like any questions we didn't answer, feel free to find JRI on Instagram, and like, I don't want to speak for you, JR, sorry.
No, it's going to be the same. I was going to say, but you go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, like I know there's a lot of questions in here. If anybody has any questions, just shoot us a DM on Instagram, and like we'd love to answer those for you. Okay, so sorry this not everybody's questions got answered, but like just go ahead and shoot a message over.
Yep, we'll definitely be providing links, so it's really easy for you guys to find in the email with everything else from this event. And then if anyone wants, we're gonna take a quick group picture just to post on Instagram. So if everyone could, like, if you want to be in the picture, feel free to turn on your cameras. And then just be mindful of the name. Your name may be displayed. So if you don't want your name displayed, make sure you kind of like rename yourself as something. So I'll give everyone just a quick minute, and then at 5:09 we'll take the picture, and then we'll let everyone go. Oh my God, everyone looks so.
Yasir, what's up?
How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
How you feeling?
I'm getting there. Recovery's going well, man.
That's good to hear, man.
You have friends on here?
I didn't even know Yasir was on here. I do.
That's awesome.
Okay, let's see. Okay, last call, and then we'll take the picture. I'll count down from 3. Okay, I'll count down from 3. So let's see. Wait. Let me set up the thing. Oops. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Yay. Oh my God, great. Everyone looks amazing. Okay, so that was it for the event. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Kristen and JR for joining us. And thank you for Rafia for helping organize this event. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And please, again, look out for the email with all of the information and JR and Kristen's contacts if your questions were not answered.
Take care, y'all. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Again, I'm super impressed with you guys. Like this was